Welcome to the Carnivore Cast, a podcast focused on the carnivore diet and lifestyle, with practical advice from successful carnivores, citizen scientists, and top researchers. I'm your host, Scott Meslinski, and I'm here to speak with experts and experienced carnivores to get answers to your biggest and meatiest questions while helping you live your best life as a carnivore. If you've followed this podcast for long enough, you'll know I'm obsessed with my sleep. Good sleep is incredibly essential for not only our physical recovery, but also mental acuity, creativity, well-being, and longevity. It affects everything we do. One change I've made in my life that has dramatically improved my sleep is blocking blue light in the evening with blue blocking glasses by Blue Blocks. Exposing ourselves to unnatural blue light from not just screens and devices, but also lamps and lights in our homes or outside stops our body from making melatonin and prevents us from getting deep restorative sleep. Blue Blocks lenses are the only ones to be lab tested to block 100% of both blue and green spectrum light. They're actually very stylish. I've had several compliments on the Kent pair I own, and my wife loves the Stellas. They're incredibly high quality, and they donate a pair of reading glasses through Restoring Vision to those in need for every pair sold. Get yours today with code Carnivore15, all uppercase, no spaces, at BLUBLOX.com to look great, get better sleep, and support the show. Thanks. Austin Cavelli at Quality Carnivore on Instagram is a physician assistant and dietary consultant using the carnivore diet to help people reduce inflammation, get lean, and improve their health. She holds a master's in medical sciences from Cornell and takes an approach of food quality and bio-individuality to helping people. Welcome to the show, Austin. Excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Of course. So I'd love to start with, I know a bit about how you work with people and how you help people, but I don't know a ton about your background and your health story. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. So I dealt with digestive issues as even a kid growing up. I learned that I was lactose intolerant. So dairy has been out of my life for a long time, but there were many other things that were just not agreeing with me. And I was kind of struggling because of it, just in the sense of energy levels and not being able to really be a kid, playing with friends and, going out to eat and those types of things. So, over time, we would try different things. I would see all these specialists, but there really were no clear-cut answers. Even into my teenage years, in my early 20s, I had 3 endoscopies, 3 colonoscopies, which is where they put a camera down your esophagus into your stomach to take a look, and then the other end as well.
Wow.
And they really had just made remarks that, there's a little bit of inflammation, but not too bad. And I remember thinking, even as a teenager in my early 20s, thinking of going into the health field, that not that bad compared to what? As at that age, you shouldn't have any inflammation. I mean, there shouldn't be an issue. So a couple different specialists had thrown some diagnoses at me as far as potentially ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune condition, just heartburn, they had named it, as far as gastroesophageal reflux disease. I was put on proton pump inhibitors. And again, follow up in a couple of years, we'll take another look. But inflammation, like I said, compared to the 50 and 60-year-old or the person who had stomach cancer, not that bad. It didn't make sense to me. So, I was turned on to paleo when my brother actually moved to Portland. It was trending then, it was new at the time. And so we started there. And then I kind of made the classic transition from paleo to keto to carnivore. And it was more so a matter of kind of overlapping recipes and, trying to experiment with myself as well. I have a background in research, so kind of conducting experiments I'm a science nerd to begin with. And so I was doing that, and paleo was great in the sense that, I'd already cut dairy out. I was just eating more whole foods, getting away from the junk, getting away from the seed oils, the processed sugars, anything packaged. And then keto, increasing the fats, I definitely had much more energy, which was great. But again, I wasn't doing the dairy. So I was learning how to increase my fats through more of animal products, ghee, and mostly focusing on meat, which is where carnivore came in. I got rid of plants altogether, also nuts and seeds. Interestingly, even on keto, I was, had this mindset that I needed vegetables. And there was at one point that I actually passed a kidney stone because I was eating so much spinach. And the oxalates really played a toll. So was lucky enough to stumble upon carnivore. And to be honest, I had so many benefits from increased energy, more stable mood, overall just being able to have that food freedom. I wasn't constantly thinking about food. I was always a sweet tooth person as a kid. And so once I got the sugars out, even going from keto to carnivore, I took out the sugar alcohols. It was so freeing not to have to crave sweets and have that addictive nature, that addictive sense that, oh, I need a little something more. I just want a little piece of chocolate. That completely went away. So that in itself was worth it for sure. And now I'm living the carnivore lifestyle. I have been for about 2.5, 3 years. And it is so exciting to me to incorporate organ meats and play with the different textures and flavors. And I hope to bring light to that for clients as well, because some people immediately make the judgment that it is meat-based and that it's very restrictive. And I would definitely disagree. I bet you if I made a list of foods as to what I eat and the variety, I would definitely have a longer list than many people who are keto or paleo or even standard American diet as far as my rotation of foods.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Austin. And
that was a long-winded answer.
No, that was perfect, and a lot of really good points you brought up there that I want to dig deeper into. One is with variety, another is with overcoming cravings, and then another is the point you mentioned around your medical background and willingness to experiment and look at evidence. So I want to tackle each of those, starting with the last one, actually. So you mentioned that you're very familiar with research and experimentation. Along the way, I can imagine how frustrating it must have been talking to these doctors and saying, your symptoms are not that bad, these experts, and just not getting satisfying answers. Did you try to bring, as you were discovering things on your own health journey from paleo to keto to carnivore, did you try to bring some of this evidence to medical professionals, or did you even just tell them what you were doing? What was the response you got?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I actually had even gone to KetoCon because I wanted to, dive in, and I wanted to meet these experts in getting the information out to as many people as possible and just supporting that cause. So I did. I went down to Austin, Texas. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago now, but just to zone in more on the science. And I did. I brought these issues to light to all of these medical professionals. And unfortunately, just even going through PA school, I know that, this is not the main focus of medicine. It is what is the medication that can be prescribed, which, of course, what they were taught is what they provided, the proton pump inhibitors to minimize the acid in my stomach, which was actually causing me more problems. I had dealt with constipation and reflux. And we now know that it's actually a lack of acid in the stomach that is not allowing your food to be moving through the gut and broken down properly. So this was actually counterintuitive, and they didn't have much to say. But I stood behind kind of being my own advocate. I even do that. My own parents have made a big transition in their life going low carb recently, and it took several years to convince them of this. The gastroenterologist is right. This is what they say. Why would they tell me wrong? And I strongly promoted Dr. Ken Berry and his videos just to wrap their heads around it as well. So it was very frustrating seeing medical professionals and also just that they weren't open-minded to the research and to the science behind it, that they were kind of stuck in their ways.
Yeah, that can be really tough to discover for a lot of folks. That they just, it takes a certain personality and a certain level of desperation to question medical authority, I think. And, the vast majority of people don't. And they just think these people have all the answers and have their best interests at heart, which, I mean, it's not a knock against doctors. It's just, unfortunately, the way that I think the medical system is set up.
No, and I thought that, maybe they'd be a little bit more responsive to, though I'm, a physician assistant, just speaking with another medical professional about it and kind of, having an open discussion about it. But it was more the convenience of it being shut down. And this is how I practice. And, if you don't want to listen to me, then don't listen to me. So I very strongly believe in being your own advocate. Even my own, my daddy's, with his recent change, his cholesterol went up a little bit, being low carb. Totally reassured him that it was fine. But he was nervous going into the doctor and speaking to him about it and being told, well, you may need to get on the statin. And he was, kind of coming up with a dialogue in his head as to what he should say to him and that he felt better. And I said, there's no one that can force you to do anything, to be put on a medication. You really do have to be your own advocate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great that he has you there to help steer him through that.
He's your leader.
And you mentioned the digestive issues. I feel like I have to pry on that a little bit because so many people ask me about it, and I had my own and have opinions on how to help with it. But I think going carnivore can help people with digestive issues naturally who have problems and would traditionally be prescribed PPIs or have low stomach acid. But it's kind of a catch-22 because carnivore itself, breaking down the amount of fat and protein, requires a certain level of digestion. So a lot of people start carnivore and start eating a lot of fat and have digestive issues. What do you suggest for people in that scenario? What are some things they can try, or what do you usually recommend for clients? A lot of people ask me about how to make liver more tasteful and how to cook it or incorporate other organ meats on carnivore. Optimal Carnivore can help you do just that with their grass-fed organ complex. It was created by carnivores for carnivores. They start by sourcing 100% grass-fed organ meats from New Zealand, gently freeze-drying the organs and encapsulating them into convenient bovine gelatin capsules. Just 6 of these capsules a day is the same as eating an ounce of raw organ meat. I personally take these every single day, as does my wife. Even though we both eat liver and other organ meats, our ancestors would have eaten the whole animal. And this unique blend has 9 different organs, including beef liver, brain, thymus, kidney, spleen, etc. And I think it's great to get a daily dose of these organs when you can. So it covers all your bases, whether you're at home or traveling. What's also cool is they plant a tree for every product sold, which helps the environment. So visit www.optimalcarnivore.com/carnivorecast and use the code carnivore10 to receive 10% off your purchase. Thanks, and back to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is often a a common question or a common like, oh, I don't do well with fats, or I don't do well with this. And it's, changing the mindset and also being patient with it for sure. The initial couple of weeks, people coming from a standard American diet, you will see pretty quick results. But even coming from keto, low carb, it's a process that you're increasing the amounts of fat. So sometimes adding enzymes definitely helps. You're still probably going to have those diarrhea symptoms because you are just completely now cutting out fiber as well. And so the foods that you're digesting are moving much more quickly through your gut due to that lack of fiber. So those are two very, very common things that I see. And I understand it's frustrating. Other people swing the opposite way and have constipation. For me, I was dealing with chronic constipation, gastroparesis, which is basically slowing down of the transit through your bowels, of the movement of food through your bowels. And carnivore, cutting out fiber actually helped me. So I became more regular. But there are people who get very nervous because they feel that either they're not digesting the fat and they're having the diarrhea, or they're only having a bowel movement once every 7 to 10 days, and that it's just not normal. So I've definitely seen both extremes. Digestive enzymes for some. I also am a big proponent in water consumption around your meals, which a lot of people don't talk about. But I don't recommend, having lots of water, but 30 to 40 minutes before your meal and 30 to 40 minutes after your meal, or even drinking during your meal for some people.
Ice water, especially.
Absolutely. And I don't think people talk about it enough, but it really can dilute your stomach acids. And when you're having, some people are doing, 2MAD or OMAD, and they're having large amounts of protein at one sitting. I think it makes a big difference for sure.
Yeah, I had kind of the opposite experience. When I started carnivore, I was eating, I think it was a combination of factors, but I was eating way too much rendered fat from ground beef.
Yeah.
And I was also drinking a lot of ice water, particularly around my meals. And I had massive bloating.
Yeah.
And then, even 12 hours away from eating my meals in the middle of the night, I would get like horrible belching and gas in my stomach. And it was unbearable, the pain. And one time I even recall so vividly, I went to this barbecue place that was excellent in Boston, and they only serve ice water. And I remember having like this fatty, delicious brisket and a bunch of ice water, and coming home and just getting terribly sick. The types of things, I'm glad this information is out there now, but starting carnivore like 3 or 4 years ago, it just didn't exist.
Yes.
It's like some of the stuff I'm kicking myself. I wish I knew, but
I know. And it's such a, like, you think about it and you're like, ice water versus room temperature water versus no water around meal. Like, it's a simple thing when you talk about it, but it makes such a big difference. I totally agree with that. Ice water, I generally just do room temperature water, but I do avoid it around meals. Also because, there's the big proponent of having enough electrolytes. So I'm heavily salting my meals. And when you do that, if anything, you're going to hold on to that water and feel it in your belly, and you'll feel very bloated as well. So it makes a difference.
Absolutely. And the other thing you touched on, Austin, was losing food cravings. And a lot of people get there with carnivore. Usually it takes a few weeks. Sometimes it'll take a little over a month. But a lot of people ask me in private messages, how do I overcome food cravings? How do I get to that place? How do I get through this withdrawal period from either sweet foods if they're coming from a standard American diet, or sometimes artificial sweeteners if they're coming from keto? What recommendations do you have there, or how do you see that working?
Yeah, so I definitely, I like to, I always like to inform my patients because I feel like if you have some type of background or you have some type of knowledge of what's going on, it helps kind of wrap your head around it. So I tell them the story, well, not story, but what's going on in the sense that their brain is basically, switching from a fat or sugar burning to more fat burning. Their body is therefore craving sugar much more due to the depletion of the glycogen stores. So it's essentially the gut brain connection telling them, okay, I need more sugar, I'm running low. And so therefore their cravings are increasing, especially within those first couple weeks. I am not, completely um, anti sugar alcohols. I personally use them myself during that transition from keto to carnivore, but it was when I completely eliminated them that my taste buds changed. I was craving much more salt. So just knowing that, having experienced that, I do encourage people to remove it sooner than later, to just kind of make it a cold stop if they can. And to increase the fat, to go for a fat bomb without those, without the stevia, without the erythritol and the sugar alcohols. Have, a tablespoon of butter and put some salt on it. And though it may seem weird, it'll help with the craving, help it to pass. So kind of meeting clients where they're at in their journey, I think is very, very important. If they're coming from a standard American diet, those cravings are going to just be crazy, insane for those first couple of weeks. And it does take time, but it's something that is affecting their mood and is affecting their everyday during that period. So while it's easy to say, oh, just stop it, getting them through that period is important. You do have to provide those tips and tricks and see what works best for them. So if it means having keto fat bombs and then slowly weaning off of those until no more sugar alcohols are in the picture, I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, those are some great tips. I really like how Mark Bell puts it, which is like, kill your cravings with fat and protein. Just like eat up. Don't try to just suffer through it.
Right.
And
for sure.
Austin, what does kind of a day of eating look like for you in terms of carnivore, and maybe how has it evolved, or what are some things you've learned over time, you've experimented with, found for yourself to work?
Yeah, so for me, now I currently do more 2 meals a day, but I was doing OMAD for some time, just experimenting with that. And it really wasn't intentional. It was just the fact that I really was very satiated. But now I've just with hormones and sleep particularly, I found that 2 meals a day is actually working better, and I'm trying to gain some lean muscle. So that stimulation has also been helpful. But in the sense of what I eat, you'll probably laugh, but I have more organ meats on my plate more than skeletal muscle. I love organ meats. And I think growing up, it was always I grew up in an Italian household, and having more variety on my plate was just more routine as opposed to one huge steak. So to see one steak, I'm like, oh, really? That's it? In the sense of variety. So I like to do a couple ounces of different organ meats, liver pretty much every day. Then I'll do kidney or brain or sweetbreads, even beef testicles lately. If I can get my hands on, the organs, that's really, they add this flavor, they add texture, and I love to experiment in the kitchen and find kind of the best ways to prepare them. But I do go for the fattier cuts of meat, ribeyes, New York strips. I have seen an evolution of how I like my meals cooked or not cooked would be a better way of saying it. I do tend to go for more raw organ meats, especially, and with muscle meats, it's really just a very, very quick pan sear. Also incorporating more lamb, but I am a beef and lamb person. I don't do chicken. Very, very rarely will I have like chicken wings. Just having grown up in upstate New York where the wings were made popular from buffalo. But pork really has never agreed with me that well. So that's another thing I don't generally do. But how else has it evolved? I guess I used to do more seafood. So I'll do it once in a while, maybe once a week. Do salmon if I'm feeling up for it, and it's usually during the colder or the summer months. Just having kind of fresh seafood, and yeah, that's I guess what I've noticed. But always keeping fat high. Suet I'll add to my meals pretty regularly, and always organ meats for sure.
Yeah, sounds like an awesome approach. And do you have a certain amount you eat per day, or more go by feel?
Yeah, so as far as actual meat, it's usually about 1.5 pounds. And then I'll kind of fill in the rest with the suet and the organs. The organs do have a good amount of protein as well, so they're leaner though for sure. So I'm always filling up with the suet in order to make sure I'm getting in enough calories. That was part of the reason I think with the even with OMAD that I wasn't sleeping as well. I think my hormones were taking a toll with the lack of the calories that I was consuming in just one meal, and the lack of fat as well, like all in one kind of bolus. So breaking that up into 2 meals has definitely been more helpful for sure.
Got it. And do you have certain times of day you like to eat that you find work well for you?
Yeah, so I'm usually I start if I'm going to have my first meal will be like 11 or noon. I've never been a breakfast person ever, and there are people. My mom and my brother and they get up, and it's like their immediate thing is to eat. My dad and I and my sister were, I'm okay with hanging out and just eating a little bit later. Dinner though has always just traditionally my family been the bigger meal. So with carnivore, I've actually played with that a bit because I found eating heavier at night was actually causing me more sleep issues. So I will now have 11 or 12 will be my bigger meal. And then my second meal will be around between 4 and 5. And I'm done eating by 6 at the latest. And I found that also helped with sleep for me for sure.
Yeah, that can be huge. I've definitely noticed a difference with adjusting my last meal of the day earlier.
Yeah.
And Austin, can you talk a little bit about how you work with clients now? Some of the things you've learned. What are some of the main issues you work with people on? What's your approach? Feel free to go as deep as you like.
Absolutely. So just being a medical professional, I do think it's important to really get a patient's medical background. So I always start with an initial consultation, which really dives in deep, not only into their medical background, but also their current lifestyle. So taking that kind of totality approach in, what have you tried as far as not only medications and what have you been diagnosed with, but lifestyle changes. And usually the lifestyle changes are, focusing in on their diet, their sleep habits, any mood problems that they've noticed. If they have a morning routine, meditation, they work out. So looking at all of those things, I think is very, very important, especially to be able to come up with a custom plan, which is really is my approach to patients, is that bio-individuality. Every patient is different. Every person is coming from a different starting point, a different point in their health journey. So looking at that is critical to be able to give them advice and to change something, that they obviously are coming to me for because they aren't able to change it themselves. So that's where I start. And then I take a deep dive into that and then come up with a plan depending on their health goals. So everyone is different. Some people are just looking to optimize their health. They want to prevent disease. They don't want to be diagnosed with, heart disease or diabetes and later down the road. So they want to do everything that they can right now to prevent that. There's other people who have those diagnoses and they're looking to reverse those diseases because traditional medicine has not helped them, has not changed things for them. And then there are other people who want to just lose a little bit of weight or, get lean, change body composition to lose fat and increase lean muscle. So they're, looking to take their health journey to the next level in the sense of more body composition and aesthetics. So there's definitely a wide range of patients that I see, and there are recommendations that are specific to not only each one of those groups, but then, of course, to the individual themselves. Some people do better with higher fat. Other people do better with higher protein. So that is my approach. And again, the bio-individuality. But also, talking to them specifically about what is your goal, what is the result that you want to see. And I've seen amazing results, whether it is for weight loss or whether it is a patient with an autoimmune condition who is now off their medication. I've seen such a wide spectrum, and it is so gratifying for me to be able to help them in those journeys.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And do you think, Austin, that everyone needs to go full carnivore? Or is it enough for some people or a lot of people to just focus more of their diet on animal meats and animal-based nutrition and get some of the crap out, as you were talking about earlier?
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, even, vegan versus carnivore, the initial benefits that people see is because they're cutting those seed oils out, those processed sugars, the crap that we speak of. And so there is definitely, obviously, I'm a carnivore consultant, and I encourage more high fat and animal products because in the long run, as far as micronutrients, I feel that vegan diets are truly lacking, and people do see this and suffer from the lack of nutrients, the bioavailability of those nutrients to their body. But in the sense of going strict carnivore, and your question about, does it have to be kind of this all or nothing, or even going on the different tiers for some people or the different levels of carnivore. I've seen people who have suffered, who said, I'm doing everything right, or I'm just doing the lion diet and I'm doing beef, water, and salt, and I'm struggling, I'm energy low. So I do not push a strict carnivore approach. I do not think it should be dogmatic whatsoever. Again, I think it has to be very bio-individual. And so I do not think that, all or nothing, that black and white is appropriate.
Yeah, I totally agree with that and talk about it all the time on the podcast. I'm all for, taking a wide approach to getting as many people to improve their health in whatever means they're willing to do and can consistently commit to and adhere to, first and foremost.
Oh yeah, I even absolutely with the quality of meat. Obviously, quality I think is very important. It's in my name, but I totally agree that if you're consuming more animal products and you're tolerating them as far as grain fed versus grass fed, there's all of these standards that are being brought to light as far as organic and no pesticides, no hormones. And I do think these things are important personally. If I can, if someone can afford them and is trying to kind of elevate their diet with these things, I think there's a place for them. But I don't think there needs to be judgment placed. If you're opting for the grain-fed ground beef every day versus a ribeye grass-fed, you're making a step in the right direction. You're doing the best that you can, and that's all that matters. You're making a conscious decision in your daily diet, and versus just taking chips off the shelf because it's convenient at the gas station. I give anybody who has made a conscious effort to improve their health credit. I think that's amazing.
Absolutely. Completely with you there. And Austin, you talked about Quality Carnivore and your brand. Can you talk a little bit about your goals for that and what you're trying to accomplish and where people can find out more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Quality Carnivore, it's really just bringing light to the carnivore lifestyle. And again, I'm looking to meet patients where they're at and improve their health in any way that I can, focusing obviously on the diet. It is definitely a passion for me. Going into the medical field, I always wanted to help others in the sense of their health. And in my previous positions, working in a hospital setting, seeing what these people were fed even after surgeries, or even, just getting their diagnoses and not ever being asked, what is your lifestyle like? There's definitely shortcomings in Western medicine. There is a place for it for sure in acute settings, but taking a more functional standpoint is truly helping people. And I'm so happy to have seen that and this path kind of unfold for me, being able to get into this space and help people in this way. I believe that it is truly helping people. So doing that from a dietary perspective is the basis of my company. And I hope to continue to do it, one-on-one, creating these custom plan for people, really hearing their stories. And eventually one day, I will hopefully open up a steakhouse that is grass-fed, grass-finished, top quality, because there is not one that exists. Belcampo is the only one that I have found. And so I think just growing up in New York, I would always go to the steakhouses, and that and a barbecue joint that is grass-fed, grass-finished. They're just lacking in this country. So hopefully one day you'll see a Quality Carnivore steakhouse for all of the carnivores to eat at and meet up at and enjoy as well. But helping patients one-on-one right now is my focus for sure.
That's awesome. That's a really great, fantastic set of goals. And I'll be the first one to eat all day long at your steakhouse or barbecue joint when you open it up.
Yes,
well, this has been really great, Austin. Appreciate the time and you talk. I think the audience will get a lot out of this and hopefully look forward to more of your content and can follow along. I'll have links to all of your stuff in the show notes as well.
So my website is officially live, and of course, I created a organ meat cheat sheet for people. So it's not a subscription; you'll go ahead and get the link to the PDF, and it's all the macros on organ meats, which is pretty hard to find regularly. So I've kind of made it my mission, and I hope to bring also some more recipes to people as far as organ meats. And just, bring light to the nutritional aspects of the diet as well. So qualitycarnivore.com is my website. That's where you can get the cheat sheet. Also, if you go ahead and find me on Facebook, it's at Quality Carnivore. Instagram, I'm also reaching out on LinkedIn, and hopefully starting a YouTube channel in the very, very near future. So all of those are kind of my platforms. And if you go ahead, I have a special gift for the first 50 people who go ahead and DM me on Instagram, that just email me or DM me, QC, and I'll have a special gift for those people. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin. Really appreciate your time, and folks should hop on that, get the special gift.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Have a great rest of your day.
Yes, thank you. You too.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Carnivore Cast. If you enjoyed this episode, please review on iTunes. It really helps us out, and share it with a friend. What questions would you like answered, or who would you like to hear from in the carnivore research community? You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Carnivore Cast, or go to carnivorecast.com. You can also email me at info@carnivorecast.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep it carnivore.